we end up going into the fun part, which is where we really try to design a quality learning environment. We're going to, the development comes a little bit later, but first we have the fun, the opportunity to sit back and to kind of visualize and conceptualize and organize what we're going to do. And so a colleague of mine here, George Jekyll, has spent a lot of time trying to put together sort of a very simple explanatory model that works well for our environment here, which is a university institution, faculty support center. And so he focuses a lot on objectives, activities, resources, and scaffolding. And then basically I have this representation here of needing to bring them all into alignment, because that's really what design is. Okay, identifying what your objectives are, what activities are going to meet those objectives, what resources are available to be able to support the activities and the objectives, and how are you going to scaffold your students through the experience. So breaking it down, here's some very basic common prescriptions here. Let's talk a little bit about objectives, and now I'm going to go ahead and start switching to some examples here. We've talked, when we first made the switch to Canvas, we saw this as an opportunity here at Utah State to take a look at all of our fully online courses, at least the 400 that we were migrating, and take a look at them and run them through a quality standards rubric. And a key component of that rubric was looking at objectives. And as we evaluated courses and sat down with faculty to say, okay, this is how your course is structured now. This is where we see some areas for improvement. Here's where it's doing well. I had a lot of good conversations with faculty about objectives, and it's one of those areas where we like to talk about objectives a lot, and we like to consider objectives as being important, but then when it comes down to, faculty on the ground teaching, a lot of times they come back and they say, well, really, what's the big deal about putting your objectives in a syllabus or about listing your objectives? I don't think anybody will argue that objectives are very important from a design standpoint. From a design standpoint, you start with objectives that are going to help you to be able to know when you've accomplished your instructional goals, what this course is all about. Really objectives, and from a design standpoint, should be, the end, starting with the end in mind, really. What are you trying to achieve? How are you going to assess it? Okay, now that you know how you're going to assess it, how are you going to teach to it? How are you going to develop your resources to it? All of these things can come into alignment when you begin with objectives. And the better your objectives are, the more precise, the more measurable, the more performance-based they are, the more your job gets easier as you start to think through how you're really going to assess students' performance. And the better your assessments become, because now no longer are you thinking, I'm teaching an online course, that means I need to have a multiple choice final, I need to have recorded audio-video lectures. Really, you're starting to look at it as, okay, when students are done with my course on accounting, I want them to be able to demonstrate that they can apply the principles of GAAP in analyzing a balance sheet or something like that. I'm not an accountant, so I'm just speaking out loud here. But this is the idea of where objectives come into play for design. But they also play an important role for students. I think they do. The better your objectives are created, the better that they're thought through, the more that they actually, I think, benefit student learning, because objectives really bring relevance to your course. There are different levels of objectives, I think. You can talk about objectives in the sense of, students will learn to uh, conjugate, or students will learn to communicate in Spanish. That might be one way that you would do an objective for a Spanish class. But really, if you're wanting to go further and actually make objectives that are going to matter for students, you can get down to, okay, what exactly is this course going to accomplish for students professionally, personally, academically, and how is this course relevant? This is your opportunity to show your students that this course is relevant to something in their immediate life goals and their immediate professional goals. So, okay, enough preaching on objectives. I'm preaching to the choir. I am absolutely sure of that. I'm going to go ahead and switch. I'm sharing my desktop now. Don't know if you're all seeing that. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is one course that we have in Canvas that I think does a very nice job with objectives, and it's also very cleanly organized. This is Ann Diekema, who's one of our instructional technology professors and also is one of our online teaching fellows. And she's just done a very good job, I think, of presenting information, and her course objectives are just beautiful. So I'm going to come over here and click on her course objectives list, and she puts them right out there in the open and really makes them very specific. After this course, you'll be able to conduct a reference interview, locate and share information, teach students how to search for information, and on and on and on. So, and then as you go into the various parts of this course, I'm going to step back, and I'm going to go to this week, which I love the way she does this. She always has a link for this week for students, so they just go, pow, straight to this week's activities. This is just fantastic. And then they have last week and next, and she has these embedded in modules and just uses these excellent representative images. Just, I love the way that this course is structured. But up here at the top, she starts it out with objectives and the objectives that are going to be met. And then she also does a great job here of meeting some other instructional sort of recommendations, starting with a background, kind of reminding students of things that they've learned previously, and activating their prior knowledge, all of that, looking ahead, homework for this week. This is just, I think, a great example of alignment and of objectives really driving the course design. There's another course here I'm going to switch to. This is an economics course. This professor did a very good job on our evaluation with objectives, and he came in and yeah, so this is just another good example here in the syllabus. These are a little bit higher level objectives here, looking at starting out with sort of the higher level idea of what are we going to learn, and then the goal. He's done a really nice job here with his syllabus and with showing objectives.